Jessica Otten of
Yes,
Haliphron. Welcome to 69 Faces of Rock. How are you doing today?
thank you, thank you. I'm doing pretty well. I had a show yesterday, so my neck is hurting a little bit, but overall I'm pretty good.
What you need is the Metal Church neck brace.
I do need that. Also, I'm not like 20 anymore, so it always takes a few days to recover. And when I'm on stage, I'm always like taking it a bit too far, and then yeah, you have to pay the next day.
I think I know the feeling. Um, well, you're still a fairly young band. How did you guys form?
We started in 2021. I mean, it's the same old story. It was the pandemic was in full swing. We were bored. All of our other bands were dismantled or we couldn't play. And we had some ideas, we had some riffs, and we just started a new band. That doesn't mean we're still young though, because we've all been in bands before, and we all played a bunch of shows before as well. And I think like all together we released like I don't know 20 albums or something. So we're not a young band, but
Young band in existence, which actually brings me to my
that's
next
true.
question. I mean, I just mentioned you are a young band, but the players in this band are quite experienced. Give me the backgrounds of individual musicians.
Yes. So we have our Marloes and Jeroen, and they are from Isegrim. That's a trash metal band from the Netherlands. They've been around for many years, and they quit in 2019, right before the pandemic. They didn't want to continue the band. They were done. They were looking for something new, but they played so many shows together, and then me and Ramon and also the keyboard player David were in a band called Bleeding Gods. We played. We were signed to Nuclear Blast. We did a bunch of tours as well, a couple of albums. So I also played in a death metal band called Dictated. I did some live gigs with Azagram, for example, and yeah, the drummer was in God Dethroned. So all in all, very experienced people indeed. But the band is still young, I guess.
That is a one long resume, if I'm
It is. And it can be way longer if we count all the session work and all the, like recordings and stuff. But yeah, that's too
yeah.
long of a story.
So once you got together, what was the goal for this particular band?
It's funny that you ask because we have so many bands in the past. We always said to each other, this band should be something special and it should be something fun. So we started writing and we started recording and we made a deal with each other like, okay, we're gonna try this again. We don't want a new startup band, but we're gonna try this. And within a year after the release of the first album, if we are not getting the things out of this that we want, then we quit immediately. So we kind of had a deadline for ourselves. Like we don't want to play the 25 people gig anymore. We don't want to we did all that. We paid our dues when it comes to that. So we made a couple of agreements with ourselves like this is what we want and this is what we don't want. And if we're not reaching that within a year, then we just call it quits. We start something else. We just, we're friends and we leave it with that. And I think that's also the reason why we formed this band so relaxed. And we're not striving, oh, we need to do this, we need to achieve that. And we were so relaxed. And I think that was the key for us to get this whole thing rolling.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Uh, your little deal worked out because you're still a band.
Exactly. And it wasn't like a deal like, oh, if we don't get on the cover of this and this magazine, then we quit. It was more like, okay, if the people don't like the music, if we don't get any good response or feedback from the fans, then we're not going to continue with this. But luckily, that was not the case.
Stylistically, how different is this from your previous groups?
Um, pretty pretty different, I would say. Like maybe not music wise, but I would say like personally for myself at least, It's pretty different because everybody knows what's expected of them. Everybody knows what to do, not only with live shows, but also with the recordings, with, let's say, for example, merchandise or doing interviews and stuff. Everybody has experience, and I think that is the big difference than like 15 years ago when I started a death metal band and we had to, like find out everything from scratch, and we made mistakes, of course. And I think, yeah, I think that's the big thing now here. We're all, yeah, pretty experienced when it comes to all the aspects of the music industry.
And for someone who's never heard your band before, how would you describe the music Haliphron plays?
That's a very good question. I always have an answer to this, but I'd rather not say it because it's recorded. But I guess if you like symphonic metal from the 90s, like let's say Dimmu Borgir, Cradle of Filth, that kind of music, I grew up with that genre. I think you're gonna like Haliphron as well. I think you do need to like symphonic elements in there, and with that I mean the keys and everything. So yeah, if you like that and that 90s vibe that come with it, I think you really gonna enjoy this album as well.
Mhm. Um, and what is a Haliphron? What is the meaning of this?
There is no meaning actually. It's a good question. I think if you Google Haliphron, you put it in Google, you will find this like squid kind of sea creature with like 7 arms or something really weird. But I don't think it means anything. I think it's like a Latin name for some species from the sea, but it doesn't really mean anything. And it also doesn't really mean anything to us. It's just a fucking cool name. That's what we thought.
Serious?
So there's no biggest story behind it at all.
So your first album, Pray, that came out in 2021. What response did it generate among the fans?
Prey actually came out in 2023, so only last year.
Oh, actually, okay.
Yeah. So the new album is like pretty fast after the first one, but after we released Prey, we got so many responses, positive responses. It went a bit crazy, to be honest. Like people were super excited about it, which surprised us. I mean, we had the deal with each other that we wanted this, but like we got asked for a bunch of cool festivals, for example, and we got on the cover for this magazine in the Netherlands, the Aardschok, and we were just all kind of blown away also by the feedback from the fans. It was like, what the hell is happening? We never experienced this. And from that first album, we got a bunch of feedback. Of course, we also got some bad grades. I mean, if you don't like the music or you think it's not your thing, of course you're gonna get some feedback. But we actually took that feedback and we did something with it. So you will notice on the new album that the tracks are a bit shorter, for example, and a little more guitar riff driven. So, but yeah, I think the responses to the first album were unexpected. Absolutely.
It's funny you mentioned Archak. I used to read that magazine, the English
Oh,
version,
really?
back in the 80s. I mean, all the magazines I wrote for back in 80s and 90s are gone in the United States. Technically, there really aren't any magazines on this side of the Atlantic. So
No,
glad
no.
to see such a classic magazine still continuing.
It still exists, and I think it's still gonna exist. Maybe not in 20 years anymore, because I do think like the readers are getting older and older, of course. Not a lot of young people read those magazines nowadays, but yeah, well, overall in Europe, we still have a bunch of printed magazines, so that's pretty cool, I think.
Absolutely awesome. Most of the magazines I buy actually are import magazines from Europe. So
Ah, there we go, there we go. Do you still have the Polish magazines, for example,
um,
there? What is it? Music?
only rock. I subscribe to that, and there's a
Uh,
Polish Metal Hammer as well.
oh, right.
And
That's cool.
every now and then something independent reaches me, so I try to kind of read as much as possible of that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's cool that it still exists.
Yeah. So how did you promote that first album? I mean, how did you kind of put all your energy into it?
Mm, to be honest, we really didn't know exactly how to promote it. I mean, we're not 20 anymore, so Our target audience also is not the 18 years old that are on TikTok, for example. So we were kind of baffled what to do with when it comes to PR and promotion. But luckily we got signed to Listenable Records, and they have, of course, they have PR people in Europe and also in the US. And they helped us a lot to find the right balance between the younger generation and the older generation, because we also noticed that the older generation really kind of likes the music that we produce. So I think with the help of the label and of course the experience that we already had when it comes to PR, we found the right balance. Yeah, to bring it to the right people.
Not only that, but you were very quick when it came to writing your second album. I mean, little
Yes.
year in between. So tell me about the writing process for the new album.
So the main writer is Ramon. We always call it like a blueprint that he creates. He is so full of energy and full of ideas always. He has his own studio as well. So what he does is he lays down the basics and he brings them either to the rehearsal room or we do it online. And we all get our saying into this, like, oh, I really don't like this, or hey, maybe you can add something like that. And we can all pitch in when it comes to ideas, but like the basic and the blueprints are from Ramon. And Ramon always sends it to David as well as the keyboard player. He sends it to him, and then overnight, all of a sudden, we have this whole full track with everything in there, like the choirs and the keys and everything. So, yeah, it's pretty quick to have another album ready. We also realize that in this day and age, you kind of need to keep going. Like it's not okay to have like a 3 or 4 year period of silence without any new music. But I do agree, like a whole full album after a year, it's a bit fast. But yeah, we thought, why not? We had a good start. Why not just continue with this? And I think Ramon already wrote the next album, but I promise you, we won't, release it next year or something. We take a bit more time.
In a way, when I was growing up and being aware of music, late 70s, 80s, bands would release albums on yearly basis. Some bands,
Yeah.
2 albums. I mean, I think Saxon did like 2 or 3 records within a year and a half.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like in this day and age, it's pretty okay to do that. I mean, even if you don't have a full album yet, you can always release singles on the digital platforms, for example. But I think that it will be good. I mean, unfortunately, if you keep quiet for 3 years, for example, or 2.5 years, 3 years, what it takes for an album, you're gonna be forgotten really soon, I think, and people need to again get in touch with you and again, like, oh yeah, that band, whatever happened to them? And it happens more often, I'm afraid.
I have to agree. Nowadays, young people's attention is very short.
Yeah, the attention span is super short, and I think to stay relevant and to stay in the picture, you need to, But I do admit this is very fast. The second album is very fast. Yeah.
If you can maintain that, why not?
Yeah, exactly. The beauty of it is that we can headline already. I mean, we have 2 full albums. We can play headline shows already, and we see that happening already. For example, in Germany, we play a lot, and yeah, we can already play an hour and a half. That's no problem at all.
Which down the line is what you really want.
Yeah.
Uh, in your opinion, how does Anatomy of Darkness differ from Prey?
Um, I guess, like I said, it's a bit more catchy. I think the riffs are a bit more, memorable, if that's the correct wording. I think it's a bit more catchy. The songs are a bit shorter as well. It's a little less keys. And I think that the theme of the album is also very, very different than Prey. With Prey, we have all kinds of different tracks and topics, and this album is all based around addiction. So it all comes together with the album. All the tracks are different addiction that people can suffer from. So yeah, I think that's the main difference. But it also has a lot of similarities to the previous album. If you look at the artwork or the way that Marloes is writing the lyrics, yeah, there's also a lot of similarities. So
Tell me about some of those songs. What are they really about? You just mentioned addiction, so
yeah,
a little bit inside a few of them.
yeah. So every track is a different addiction, and that sounds weird, I know, because we have addictions like the more simple addictions like painkiller addiction or gambling addictions. We also have tracks that are a bit deeper, I guess the self-mutilation. We even have an arson addiction in one of the tracks. And I think the whole album, all the addiction combined, is the story on how to deal with these addictions and how do you give that a place in your own heart? Because everybody has their own darkness, their own addiction. And I think that's what the whole album is about. That's the red thread in there.
Mhm. Um, uh, it got me thinking about the arson, like your own personal tribute to pyromania.
Exactly, exactly. And we played that song live already just to like yesterday we played it, and it's such a cool song to play live because Marloes at some point is just yelling all the time, burn, 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 and it's really energetic, and I really love that song, especially live.
Now, you mentioned some time ago about each member having a special role. How did that clarify with the second record out?
What do you mean with a special
Like,
role?
who does what at this point?
Um, I guess everybody contributes in their own way. Like I said, Ramon is the writer of the music, so he does a lot. But he's also like the band leader, I guess. He organizes like the transport. He organizes the merchandise. I, for example, do a lot when it comes to PR and promotion and the band and the socials. And then we of course have Jeroen and Marloes who take care of the organization behind every show, for example, logistics. Yeah, I think everybody has their own part in the band, besides their own part musically, of course. Marloes also writes her own lyrics, her own vocal parts, of course. I really don't know how she does it, so I really don't want to contribute to that. All I know is that she does an amazing job with it, so that's her part. Same for guitar riffs and solos. That's just Ramon and Jeroen. Um, yeah, everybody knows what to do, and everybody has their own voice in the band as well.
Mhm. When you look back at both albums, what are you proud of the most?
Hmm, that's a very good question, actually.
It is, and I
It is.
asked that question because of all the experience you guys have.
Yeah, that is such a good question. I think I'm most proud of the tracks that we play live, and that still gives me a feeling uh, that I really enjoy. I listen to a lot of music. I work in the music industry as well, and I listen to so much music, and not a lot of music touches me anymore. And then when I play live and I still feel the music on those tracks, for example, or I see people enjoying what we do, I think I I feel very proud. I had that yesterday on stage as well. Like if I see somebody singing along with one of our tracks, that just makes me fucking proud. And I don't think it, yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
I think that's the case.
Mhm. Excellent. Um, at this point, do you think you guys arrived at your style, or is that still work in progress?
I think we're almost there. I feel like we're in the right direction, and I think with the next album, it's gonna be our style 100%. If you listen to the first album and this album, you will notice some differences. And I think we almost found our own sound. Yeah, I think with the next album, it's gonna be yeah.
Excellent. Um, how is the band doing on the American market?
Honestly, I don't really know. We of course have US fans, and we get messages from them. But we've never played America, for example. We've never even no, none of us have been there. I think I've been to the US once for work, but like for music, no, I've never been there. So I really don't know, because all I have are the statistics, for example, from Spotify or the fans that message you. But yeah, I really don't know. I have no idea.
Are
You
there
tell me.
are there any chances of possibly seeing you in the United States anytime soon?
We hope so. We hope so. Of course, we just got signed to Doomstar Bookings. Um, the first market we're gonna do, of course, Europe. That's gonna happen next year. I can't tell too much about that already, but yeah, of course, it's gonna be Europe first. But hopefully, yeah, in the future, maybe at the end of next year or in 2026, we can go to the US, supporting a different band, of course. That will be the ultimate dream, of course. Yeah,
That would make sense. It's a very tough market to crack because it's so massive and there's
exactly.
so many bands competing for the same amount of money.
Exactly, exactly. And that's it. It's crazy the amount of bands that are around now and are willing to tour. It's absolutely crazy. So yeah, Europe, of course, for us, it's makes more sense. But yeah, if we can go to the US at some point, that will be absolutely amazing. Yeah.
So finally, still thinking about that US market, like what kind of a strategy would you have to spread your music onto this continent and reach as many people as possible?
What? Sorry, I didn't hear the
Like what kind
question.
of a strategy would you have to kind of spread your music from Europe to, let's say, United States, Canada, and other countries and reach as many people as possible? Like what
That is also a very good question, because if you have that answer for me, I'd like to know, because no, I think it's playing a lot live and making sure that you get, for example, a lot of visual material as well, so that the US market can at least see what we do over here. And hopefully at some point there would be somebody like, hey, we need to bring this, or we need to take this to the US. Hopefully that works, because we also noticed that if you use social media, for example, it doesn't really work anymore. You can't really reach the right people that you want, especially not without advertising or paying. So I think the power in doing PR or making sure that people know about your band is all in, knowing people and talking about the band. So if I talk to you, maybe, and you like the album, hopefully you will speak to your best friend, for example, and say like, hey, you need to listen to this. And that person again will talk to another person like, hey, did you hear about this? And I think that's the way to go. So hopefully it can spread that way in the US, because I don't see social media and stuff happening anymore, to spread the word.
honestly, there is no answer to this question.
I know, I know. I wish I had the answer, but yeah,
And
no.
I can back it up with some examples. There are bands who are visible, yet for some reason their music refuses to catch on.
Right,
And
right.
there are bands that are barely visible and they get a great response.
Exactly,
How
exactly.
do you
They
explain
have
that?
something.
How do you explain that? You can't.
It
So,
doesn't it doesn't make any sense.
no. Anyways, thank you for speaking with me and
Of
good luck
course.
on the tour and hopefully you can make it on this side of the Atlantic and we can see each other live.
I hope so too, Mark. And thank you so much for having me.
Thanks.